The cloud is evolving. You know, it's no longer just a set of remote services accessed through a public cloud. Rather, it's expanding to on-premises, to multiple premises, across clouds, and eventually out to the edge. The challenge for customers is how to treat these locations as one. The opportunity for technology companies is to make that as simple as possible from an operational perspective. Welcome to this CUBE program, where we're featuring Pure Storage in its latest innovations in bringing infrastructure and applications more closely together, fusing them, if you will. And today, we have a two-part program. First, we're going to hear from Rob Lee, who's the CTO of Pure Storage, and then my colleague John Walls is going to talk to Scott Sinclair of Enterprise Strategy Group. Scott will provide his expert analysis on infrastructure modernization and what to expect in today's changing world. So joining me right now is Rob Lee, CTO of Pure Storage. Welcome, Rob. Good to see you.
Good to see you again too, Dave.
Hey, so take us through the announcements from today at a high level. What's most exciting about what you're delivering?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, many announcements today, many things to discuss. But overall, I think what's most exciting is it's the expansion of our ability to help customers along the modern data journey. Right? We've always thought of the journey to modern data as being formed by three pillars, if you will. Certainly modernizing infrastructure, modernizing operations, and applications. And today's announcements are really, in that kind of middle category of, like you said, bringing infrastructures and applications a lot more closely together, right? We've been modernizing infrastructure since day one. Probably people best know us for that. And today's announcements are really about tackling that operations piece, bringing infrastructure and code and applications more closely together. And so when we think about Pure Fusion, for example, that's really a huge step forward in how we're enabling our customers to manage large fleets of infrastructure products and components to deliver those services in a more automated, more tightly integrated, seamlessly, transparently delivered way to the application that they serve, whether these services are being delivered by many different arrays in one location, many different arrays in different data center locations, or between the premise, on-premise environment and the cloud environment. Likewise, on the application front, when we think about today's announcements in Portworx Data Services, that's really all about how do we make the run and operate steps of a lot of the application building blocks that cloud native developers are using and relying on, the database applications that are most popular in open source, Cassandra, Mongo, so on and so forth. How do we make the run and operate pieces of those applications a lot more intuitive, a lot more easily deployed, scaled, managed, monitored for those app developers? And so a ton of momentum is a big step forward on that front. And then, right in the middle, when we think about today's announcements in Pure One, that's really all about how do we create more visibility, connecting the monitoring and management of the infrastructure running the apps and bring those closer together. So when we think about the visibility we're now able to deliver for Portworx topologies, allowing developers and DevOps teams to look at the entire tech stack, if you will, of a container environment, from the application to the containers to the Kubernetes cluster to the compute nodes, all the way down to the storage, and be able to see everything that's going on, root cause any sort of problems that come up. But again, that's all in service of bringing infrastructure and applications a lot more closely together. So that's really how I view it. And like I said, it's really the next step in our journey of helping customers modernize between infrastructure operations and their applications.
Okay, so you've got the control plane piece, which is all about the operating model. You've got Pure One, you mentioned that, which is for monitoring. You've got the Portworx piece, which brings sort of development and deployment together, and both infrastructure as code, and better understanding that full stack of, like you say, from applications through the clusters, the containers, all the way down to the storage. So I feel like it's not even storage anymore. I mean, it's cloud.
It is, and I chuckle a little bit because at the end of the day, we deliver storage, but what customers are looking for is, and what they value and what they care about is their data. Now, obviously, the storage is in service of the data. What we're doing with today's announcements is again just making it extending extending our reach, helping customers work over their data, a couple more steps down the road beyond just serving the bits and bytes of the storage, but now getting into how do we connect the data that's sitting on our storage more quickly, get it in the hands of developers and the applications more seamlessly and more fluidly across these different environments.
How does this news fit into Pure's evolution as a company? I mean, I don't see it as a pivot. Because the pivot's like, okay, we're going to go from here. And
now we're doing this. Now we're doing this.
Right. Yeah. So it's more like a reinvention or a progression of the vision and the strategy. Can you talk to that?
Absolutely. And I think between those two words, I would say it's a progression. It's a next step in the journey as opposed to a reinvention, right? And again, I go back to, the difference between storage and data and how customers are using data. We've been on a long-term path, long-term journey to continue to help customers modernize how they work with data, the results they're able to drive from the data. We got our start in infrastructure, if you want to do bleeding edge things with data, you're not going to do it on decades old infrastructure. So let's fix that component first. That's how we got our start. Today's announcements are really the next couple of steps along that journey. How do we make the core infrastructure more easily delivered, more flexible to operate, more automated in the hands of not just the DevOps teams, the IT teams, but the application developers? How do we deliver infrastructure more seamlessly as code? Well, why is that important? It's important because what customers are looking for out of their data is both speeds and feeds, the traditional kind of measures, bandwidth, IOPS, latency, that sort of thing. But they're looking for speed of agility, right? You look at the modern application space around how data is being processed. It's a very, very fast-moving application space. The databases that are being used today may be different than the ones being used 3 months from now or 6 months from now. And so developers, application teams are looking for a ton more flexibility, a ton more agility than they were 3, 5, 10, 15 years ago. The other aspect is simplicity and reliability, right? As you know, that's a core component of everything we do. Our core products, our arrays, our storage appliances. We're very well known for the simplicity and reliability we drive at the individual product level. Well, as we scale and look at larger environments, as we look at customers' expectations for what they expect from a cloud-like service, there's the next level of scale and how we deliver that simplicity and reliability, right? And what do I mean by that? Well, a large enterprise customer who wants to operate like a cloud, wants to be able to manage large fleets of infrastructure resources, be able to package them up, deliver infrastructure services to their internal customers. They want to be able to do it in a self-service, policy-driven, easy to control, easy to manage way. And that's the next level of fleet-level simplicity. And that's really what Pure Fusion is about, right? Is allowing operators that control plane to specify those attributes and how that service should be delivered. Same thing with Portworx, right? If we think about simplicity and reliability, containers, cloud-native applications, microservices, a lot of benefits there, right? Very fast-moving space. You can mix and match components, put them together very easily. But what goes hand in hand with that is now a need for a greater degree of simplicity because you have more moving parts, and a greater need for reliability because, well, now you're not just serving one application, but 30 or 40 working in unison. And that's really what we're after with Portworx and Portworx Data Services and the evolution of that family. So getting back to your original question, I really look at today's announcements as not a pivot, not a reinvention, but the next logical steps in our long-term journey to help customers modernize everything they do around data.
Right, thanks for that, Rob. Hey, I want to switch topics. So virtually every infrastructure player now has an as-a-service offering. And there are lots of claims out there about who was first, who's the best, et cetera. What's Pure's position on this topic? You claim you're ahead of the pack in delivering subscription and as-a-service offerings in the storage industry. You certainly were first with Evergreen. That was sort of a real change in how folks delivered. What about as a service and pure as a service? What gives you confidence that you have the right approach and you're leading the industry in this regard?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think first and foremost, we think of everything we do, at Pure as a service, and whether that's delivering products and helping customers to run and operate in an as-a-service model internally, or whether it's Pure taking on more of that run and operate as a service ourselves with Pure as a service. And so, the second part of your question, which is, what is it that sets us apart? What are we doing differently? What gives us confidence that this is the right path? Well, fundamentally, I think the difference is obviously this is a hotter topic in the industry, of late. But I think the difference is between us and the competitive set is we really look at this as a product and technology-led philosophy and strategy, and we have since day one. Right. And I think that's different than a lot of others in the industry, who look at it as a little bit more of a packaging exercise between financial services, professional services, wrap it up in T's and C's, and you call it a service. What do I mean by that? Right. So, if you look internally at Pure, everything we do, we think of as a service. We have a business unit organized around it. We have an engineering team, significant resources dedicated to it, and building out service offerings. When we think about why this is technology led, I think of a service for something to be thought of as a service, right? It's got to be flexible. It's got to be adaptable. I've got to be able to grow as a customer and evolve as I need, whether that's, changing needs in terms of performance and capacity. I've got to be able to do that without being locked into day one rigid kind of static swim lanes of having to capacity plan or plan out what my usage is going to look like 18 months from now. Right. I've got to be able to move and evolve and grow without disruption. Right. It's not a service if you're going to make me do a data migration or take a downtime. And so when I net all that out, right, what are the things that you need, the attributes you need to be able to deliver a service? Well, you need a product set that is going to be able to be highly malleable, highly flexible, highly evolvable. You need something that's going to be able to cover the entire gamut of needs, whether it's price performance, tiers, high performance, capacity, lower cost price points. You need something that's got a rich set of capabilities, whether it's access protocols, file, block, object, whether it's data protection properties, replication, snapshots, ransomware protection. So you need that full suite of capabilities. But in order to deliver it as a service and enable me as a customer to seamlessly grow and change, that's got to be delivered on a very tight set of technology that can be repurposed and configured in different ways. You can't do this on 17 different products and expect me to change and move every single time I have a service need change. And so when I net that out, that puts us in a absolutely differentiated position to be able to deliver this, because again, everything we do is based on two core product families. Portworx adds a third. We're able to deliver all of the major storage protocols, all of the data protection capabilities across all of the price, performance, and service tiers. And we're able to do this on a very tight code base. And as you know, everything we do is completely non-disruptive. So all of the elements really add up in our favor. And like I said, this is a huge area of strategic focus for us.
So these offerings, they're all part of the service-driven component of your portfolio. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. You talk all the time about modern data experiences, modern application, modern data changing the way customers think about infrastructure. What exactly does that mean, and how are you driving that?
Well, I think it means a couple different things, but if I were to net it out, it's a greater demand for agility, a greater demand for flexibility and optionality. And if we look at why that is, when I talk to customers, as they think about infrastructure, largely they think about their existing application demands and needs, what they're spending 90% of their time and budget dealing with today. And then the new stuff that they're getting more and more pressured to go off and build and support, which is oftentimes the more strategic initiatives that they have to serve. So they're kind of balancing both worlds. And in the new world of modern applications, it's much more dynamic. meaning the application sets that are being deployed are changing all the time. The environments and what the infrastructure needs to deliver, it has to change more quickly in terms of scaling up, down, growing. Has to be a lot more elastic, and has much higher variance, right? And what I mean by that is, you look at a modern cloud native microservices architecture type application, it's really 20, 30, 40 different applications all working in concert with one another under the hood. This is a very different infrastructure demand than your more traditional application set, right? Back in the day, you have an Oracle application, you go design an environment for that, right? It's a big exercise, but once you put it in place, it has its own life cycle. These days with modern applications, it's not just one application, it's 20 or 30. You've got to support all of them, working in unison. You don't want to build separate infrastructures for each piece. And that set of 20 or 30 applications is changing very rapidly as open source ecosystem moves forward, as the application space moves forward. And so when customers think about the changing demands on infrastructure, this is kind of what they're thinking about and having to juggle. And so that, at the end of the day, drives them to demand much more flexibility in their infrastructure, being able to use it for many different purposes, much more agility, being able to adapt very, very quickly, and much more variance or dynamic range, right? The ability to support many different needs on the same set of infrastructure. And this is where we see very, very strong demand indicators, and we're very invested in meeting these needs because they fit very well with our core product principles.
Great, thank you for that. I really like that answer because it's not just a bunch of slideware mumbo jumbo. You actually put some substance on it. Rob, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And look forward to having you back soon. Now, in a moment, Scott Sinclair, who's a senior analyst at Enterprise Strategy Group, speaks with theCUBE's John Walls to give you the independent analyst's take. You're watching theCUBE, your global leader in high-tech coverage.
Agility is what all digital organizations strive for. And for almost the entirety of the enterprise storage industry, agility and storage aren't words you'd often hear together. Since the founding of Pure Storage, we've been laser focused on taking what's painful about traditional enterprise storage and making it better. We imagined a world where consumers self-service the provisioning of their storage resources to match the performance and data protection capabilities that their applications require. No endless back and forth between application owners and storage teams, just true, on-demand self-service. At the same time, imagine all of the complex storage management operations required to make this possible being automated through software. From the placement of the initial workload to storage adjusting with the unpredictable needs of an application and seamlessly migrating and rebalancing the fleet as needed, all with zero downtime and no manual intervention. And finally, imagine an almost limitless scale that adjusts to meet your business's data management needs over time. This is what we believe the future of enterprise storage looks like.
Today, we are announcing Pure Fusion, a leap forward in enterprise storage, marrying the best parts of the public cloud with the storage experience and capabilities you've come to expect from Pure. By bringing the simplicity and scalability of the cloud operating model with on-demand consumption and automated provisioning, organizations can deliver an enterprise-grade, managed self-service storage model that unifies fleets of arrays and optimizes storage pools on the fly. End users will be able to rapidly consume volumes, file systems, and advanced data services like replication without waiting for back-end manual work, making storage hardware truly invisible. And organizations will be able to scale seamlessly across block, file, and object workloads, leveraging the power of the entire Pure Storage family, including FlashArray, Pure Cloud Block Store, FlashBlade, and Portworx.
It is time to take a look at what Pure is up to from a slightly different perspective. To help us do that is Scott Sinclair, who is a senior analyst at the Enterprise Strategy Group. And Scott, thanks for joining us here on theCUBE. Good to see you today.
Great to see you.
All right, so let's jump into this. First, we'll get to the announcement just a little bit. First off, in terms of Pure's strategy, as you've been watching this company evolve over years now, how has it evolved? And then we'll move to the announcements and how that fits into the strategy. But first off, let's just take them from your point of view. Where have they been and how are they doing?
Yeah,
many people know of Pure, maybe they don't know, of their history as an all-flash array. I think Pure has always been, ever since they entered the IT industry, as a pioneer. They're one of the early ones that said, look, we're going all in on the all-flash array business and a focus on flash technology. Then there were early pioneers in things like Evergreen and things like storage as a service capabilities for on-premises storage. And the entire time they've had a really, almost streamlined focus on ease of use, which, from the outside, I think everyone talks about ease of use and making things simple for IT, but Pure has really made that almost like core as part of not only their product and their design, but also part of their culture. And one of the things, and we'll get into this a little bit as we talk about the announcements, but if you look at these announcements and where Pure's going, they're trying to expand that culture or that DNA around ease of use or simplicity and expanding it beyond just storage or IT operations, and really trying to see, okay, how do we make the entire digital initiative process or the larger IT operations journey simpler? And I think that's part of where Pure is going, is not just storage, but focusing more on apps, operations, and data, and making it easier for the entire experience.
So how do the announcements, we're talking about, there are three phases here, and again, we'll unpack those separately, but just in general, now, how do the announcements then, you think, fit into that strategy and fit into their view and your view, really, of the market trends?
I think one of the big trends is, IT, in terms for, most businesses, it's not just an enabler anymore. IT is actually in the driver's seat. We see in our research at ESG, we just did this study, and I'm going to glance over my notes as I'm kind of talking, but we see one of the things is more than half of businesses are identifying some portion of their revenue is coming from digital products or digital services. So data is part of the revenue chain for a majority of organizations, according to what we're seeing in our research. And so what that does is it puts IT right in that core, that core delivery model of where the faster IT can operate, the faster organizations can realize these revenue opportunities. So what is that doing to IT organizations? Well, first off, it makes their life a lot harder. It makes demands continue to increase. But also this old adage or this old narrative that IT is about availability, it's about resiliency, it's about keeping the lights on and ensuring that the business doesn't go down. Well, none of that goes away, but now IT organizations are being measured on their ability to accelerate operations. And in this world where everything's becoming more complex, there are more demands, organizations are becoming more distributed, application demands are becoming more diverse, and they're growing in breadth. All of this means that more pressure is falling not only on the IT operations, but also on the infrastructure providers like Pure Storage to step up and make things even simpler with things like automation and simplification, which, again, we're going to talk about, but to help accelerate those operations.
Yeah, I mean, if you're DevOps these days, I mean, you're talking about kind of these quandaries that people are in. But I mean, what are these specific challenges, do you think? I mean, on the enterprise level here that Pure is addressing?
Yeah, well, so for example, you talked about developers and driving into that in particular. I want to say, let's see, glancing at my notes here. About 2/3 of organizations say they're under pressure to accelerate their IT initiatives due to pressures specifically from DevOps teams as well as line of business teams. So what does that mean? It means that as organizations build up and try to accelerate either their revenue creation via the creation of software or products or things that drive, that support a DevOps team. Maybe it's improving customer experience, for example, as well as other line of business teams such as analytics and trying to provide better insights and better decision-making off of data. What that means is this traditional process of IT operations of where you submit a trouble ticket and then it takes, after a few days, something happens and they start doing analysis in terms of basically what ends up being multiple days or multiple weeks to basically provision storage just takes too long. And so in these announcements, what we're seeing is Pure delivering solutions that are all about automating the backend services. and delivering storage in a way that is designed to be easily and quickly consumed by the new consumers of IT, the developers, the line of business teams, via APIs, where you can write to a standard API and it goes across basically lots of different technologies and happens very quickly, where a lot of the backend processes are automated and essentially making the storage invisible to these new consumers. And all of that just delivers value, because what these groups are doing is now they can access, they can get the resources that they need, and they don't have to know about what's happening behind the scenes, which, candidly, they don't really know much about right now, and they don't really care.
Right. That's right. What I don't see, what I don't know won't hurt me.
Exactly.
But it can, as we know, it can. All right, so let's look at the announcements. Pure Fusion. I think we were hearing about that just a little bit before earlier in the interview that Dave was conducting, but let's talk about Pure Fusion and your thoughts on that. Yeah.
Pure Fusion is what I was talking about a little bit, where they're abstracting a lot of the storage capabilities and presenting it as an API, a consistent API that allows developers to provision things very quickly, and where a lot of the back-end services are automated and, essentially invisible to the developer. And that is, it addresses where, I kind of talked about this with some of the data that we just, some of our research stats that we just discussed, but it's where a lot of organizations are going. The bottom line is, we used to, in a world where IT services weren't growing as fast and where everything had to be resilient and available, you could put a lot of personnel power or personnel hours focused on, making sure every box and everything was checked prior to doing a new implementation. And all of that was designed to reduce risk and possibly optimize the environment and reduce cost. Now, in this world of acceleration, what we've seen is organizations need faster responsiveness from their IT organization. Well, that's all well and good, but the problem is it's difficult to do all those back-end processes and make sure that data is fully being protected, or making sure that everything is happening behind the scenes the way it should be. And so this is, again, just mounting more and more pressure. So with things like Pure Fusion, what they're doing is they're essentially automating a lot of that on the back end and really simplifying it and making it so storage or IT administrators can provide access to their line of business, to development teams, to leverage infrastructure a lot faster, while still ensuring that all those back-end services, all those operations still happen.
Portworx Data Services also announced, and we're hearing from Dave from that perspective, maybe a game changer in terms of storage. So your take on that, on Portworx?
I really like Portworx. I've been following them ever since prior to the acquisition. One of the things that they were very early on is understanding the impact of microservices on the industry, and really the importance of designing infrastructure around for that environment. I think what they're doing around data services is really intriguing. I think it's really intriguing, first off, for Pure as a company, because it elevates their visibility to a new audience and a new persona that may not have been familiar with them. Right, as organizations are looking at, one of the things that they're doing with this data services is essentially delivering a database as a service platform where you can go provision, and stand up databases very quickly. And again, similar to what we talked about Fusion, a lot of those back-end processes are automated. Really fascinating. Again, aligns directly with this acceleration need that we talked about. So, huge value, but it's really fascinating for Pure because it opens them up to, hey, there's this whole new world of possible consumers where they can get experience to really the ease of use that Pure is known for, a lot of the capabilities that Portworx is known for, but also just, increase, really the value that Pure is able to deliver to some of these modern enterprises.
And just briefly on the enhancements to Pure One also being announced today, your take on those?
I like that as well. I think one of the things, if I kind of go through the list, is a lot of insights and intelligence in terms of new sizing applications for the environment, if I remember correctly, and more better capabilities to help ensure that your environment is optimized, which candidly is a top challenge around IT organizations. We talk about, again, I keep hitting on this need to move faster, faster, faster. One of the big disconnects that we've seen, and we saw it very early when organizations were moving to, for example, public cloud services, is this disconnect towards, for this individual app, how many resources do I really need? And I think that's something that, vendors like Pure need to start integrating more and more intelligence. And that's what my understanding is they're doing with Pure One, which is really impressive.
Well, solid takes. Scott, we appreciate the time. Thank you for your insights on what has been a big day for Pure Storage, but thank you again for the time. Scott Sinclair at the Enterprise Strategy Group, Senior Analyst there. Let's go back to Dave Vellante now with more on theCUBE.
Thanks for watching this CUBE program made possible by Pure Storage. I want to say in summary, sometimes it's hard to squint through all the vendor noise on cloud and as a service and all the buzzwords and acronyms in the marketplace. But as we said at the top, the cloud is changing, it's evolving, it's expanding to new locations. The operating model is increasingly defining the cloud. There's so much opportunity to build value on top of the massive infrastructure build out from the hyperscalers, $100 billion in CapEx last year alone. This is not just true for technology vendors, but organizations are building their own layer to take advantage of the cloud. Now, of course, technology is critical, so when you're evaluating technology solutions, look for the following. First, the ability of the solution to simplify your life. Can it abstract the underlying complexity of a cloud, multiple clouds, connect to on-prem workloads in an experience that is substantially identical, irrespective of location? Does the solution leverage cloud-native technologies and innovations and primitives and APIs, or is it just a hosted stack that's really not on the latest technology curve, whether that's processor technology or virtualization or machine learning, streaming, open source tech, etc. Third, how programmable is the infrastructure? Does it make developers more productive? Does it accelerate time to value? Does it minimize rework and increase the quality of your output? And 4, what's the business impact? Will customers stand up and talk about the solution and how it contributed to their digital transformation by flexibly supporting emerging data-intensive workloads and evolving as their business rapidly changed? These are some of the important markers that we would suggest you monitor. Pure is obviously driving hard to optimize these and other areas, so watch closely and make your own assessment as to how what they and others are building will fit into your business. Now, as always, this content is available on demand at thecube.net, so definitely check that out. This is Dave Vellante for John Walls and the entire CUBE team. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.